In this lab, we're going to use Copilot Chat to establish a relationship between advertising and revenues. So if you go and talk to a marketer, at least traditionally they'd say only 50% of advertising is valuable or worthwhile. The problem is we don't know which 50% that is. So, but let's go see if we can establish a relationship. You would only want to invest in advertising if, in fact, you are going to increase sales, right? And so let's go ahead and do this lab. Usually we start and do a new chat just to clear the registers, and then I'm going to immediately upload the data. And so let's go ahead and do that here, the data file. And you can kind of see it reading in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and enter that. So here we have data which has the month, the date, the advertising expenses, and the revenues over these dates. And so we're going to start our relationship here by the evaluation is asking it to display the last 5 lines of data. I like to do that to make sure it's completely read in everything in, isn't lazy. And so here's the last 5 rows of the data, and that is what I'm expecting, so that looks good to me. The next thing we're going to do is ask it to create a scatter plot. And sometimes I might want to tell it specifically what I'm looking for. Y is a function of X. Revenues, I am saying, is the dependent variable, and it depends on the level of advertising expenditures, which is the independent variable, or should be on the X-axis. So let's go ahead forward with that. And we're asking it to do this relationship, and that'll help us set up later for what we want to see. And so this is going to show us a relationship. Kind of hard to see here. We may want to ask it to go to zeros, but that's not necessarily the nature of this lab. But if I had revenue starting at 0 and advertising starting at 0, I might better be able to see the relationship. But at least for now, I'm going to ask it to go ahead and insert a trend line. Or I could say fit a regression line to the data. That would work just fine as well. It's the same process. So I'm asking it to insert a trend line and then provide the regression equation and related statistics for that trend line. Now it's going to give me some basic regression analysis, but not too much. But it's going to go ahead and interpret that. We see a positive relationship. We could ask for additional details about the regression or some full regression results. That's not necessarily the nature of this lab, but we see that it explains about 25% of the variance, and that for every dollar of advertising expense, it explains, multiply that by 350, it creates 350 in revenues. And the y-intercept, so if there were no advertising expenditures, it would still have 825,000 worth of revenue. And so that just kind of helps us see that relationship there. And so let's go ahead and go a little bit further, and we'll say, hey, if advertising was 50,000, what could we expect sales to be? And so we're kind of asking it to insert it into that equation and see what it would look like. I could ask it for more details, but essentially I'm taking 50,000 and I'm multiplying it by 3.5, and then I'm adding 825,000, and that gives me roughly $1 million worth of sales. Now I'm ready for some outputs, so I'll go ahead and ask it specifically for outputs. In this case, is a little bit different from ChatGPT. I like a really detailed description of what the file would look like or say, specifically the name. And here it says download the scatter plot, which I'm downloading, but it just gave me a generated image and not the specifics. And because I run so many of these, it'd be really easy to see how I would get confused one versus another. So I really like carefully saying the name, but it doesn't look like it does that quite yet, unless it is a Microsoft Office file, right? So I'm now asking it, next step is to display the regression results. And now it's going to do that right on the screen. If I say display, it will put it right on the screen. If I say save it, it will give it to me. Now these are still the basic results that are provided, and in this case it decided not to put them on the screen, but here I have a text file and it's just giving me those basic results there. Now I could ask for fuller regression results if I wanted as well. The last thing I'm going to ask it to do is to output the prompts. Usually I will ask it to output prompts so I can see exactly what was run with the data. So if you combine the prompts with the data file, essentially I could easily recreate exactly what I've done here. And because it's a Word file and Copilot is a Microsoft product, it's going to put in fine fashion, see it will actually name the file. And so I'm able to see it there. And when I open it up, that file looks like a Microsoft Word file and has exactly what we asked it to do. So that completes this lab.